On episode 699 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Ben Mudge and discuss his book, Fitness Without Limits: Break Through Obstacles, Live Without Fear, and Find a Better You. Welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, the largest and longest running health and fitness podcast dedicated to people over 40. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or improve your health and age better, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Coach Allan, an online health and fitness coach and author of the Wellness Roadmap. Each week, we dive into practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and fitness. If you're ready to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter your age, this podcast is the perfect place to start. Let's get you on the path to a healthier, fitter, and more energetic version of yourself. I hope you'll join us each week, and together we can unlock your full potential. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast. I'm really glad that you're here. This is episode 699, and this is going to be a good one. Ben is a really good athlete. He's done a lot, considering the setbacks he's had in his life, which again makes it all that much more impressive for him to be doing what he's doing and helping the people that he's helping. Now, I'm just a few days away from flying back to the United States. Yeah, I know. Tammy just got here and then I'm leaving, but that was kind of by design. I've got some things I've got to take care of for my mother and her estate. Then I'm visiting family. We're having a reunion in Asheville. And after that, I'll be headed down to Mississippi for the birth of my first grandson. So pretty exciting times. I'm really excited to be there. And actually a pretty exciting time for us to have just gone through Father's Day because I've reopened the Fit for Task boot camp at the founder's price. You don't have to be a father. You just need to be someone who is ready to go from stuck to having momentum over the course of 28 days. You can go to 40plusfitness.com/bootcamp to join us, and you can use the coupon code FATHER. This is going to get you the best price that you would ever get. It's only going to be valid through tomorrow. So you need to get out there and do this today if you want to do the boot camp. Again, it's for someone who's struggling. You're going to get daily missions via email. There's an app to help you kind of keep up with a lot of this stuff and to communicate with me, to be a part of the community. It's a really cool place. And we have office hours where I get on the phone on a Zoom call and I answer all your questions. So it's a really good way for you to get the coaching you need to get started, build some momentum, get some consistency, and see some change. One of our clients just finished up last week, and he lost over 10 pounds in the 28 days. So a lot of good things can happen in 28 days if you set your mind to it and you stay consistent. So go to 40plusfitness.com/bootcamp. Use the coupon code FATHER to get the best price you're ever going to get for this particular program. It's a 28-day program. You're not going to be sorry that you got into this because it's going to help you get started, get unstuck, and see some change. So hope to see you there. Our guest today is an online coach known for sharing his inspirational journey with cystic fibrosis, a genetic disorder that primarily affects the lungs. He is passionate about helping others to lead healthy and active lives, both physically and mentally. He does this through his social media presence, with his positive attitude, resilience, and commitment to making the best out of any challenge. With no further ado, here's Ben Mudge. Ben, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you for having me on, Al. I really appreciate it.
So the name of your book is Fitness Without Limits: Break Through Obstacles, Live Without Fear, and Find a Better You. I love the title because I think too many people in our 40s, we've already mentally placed limits on who we are and who we can be and what we can have. And unfortunately, as we get then into our 50s and 60s and 70s, we're starting from a different baseline. Even if we're already in our 50s or 60s, kind of knowing that we can actually raise our bar a little bit above and beyond what we may have thought our age group was. We're seeing centenarians run 100-yard dashes faster than I could in my 50s. We're seeing, 80-year-old bodybuilders. We're seeing people doing crazy things. We'd say crazy things, but it's not crazy. They're just living their lives.
That's it, yeah.
And that's what this book does.
Yeah, that is in essence what it is. It's to challenge you and to show yourself that you probably, well, in most cases, people are so much more capable than they realize. There's so many limitations people put on you, but then I'd say the more damaging things are the ones you put on yourself. These limitations that you start believing in, and just challenging those thoughts. That's really what I hope the book does. Is just that, okay, these are not these massive leaps I need to take that are extremely overwhelming and daunting to people. These are little things that we can do day in, day out that are going to give me that sense of confidence that maybe I can do this, or maybe this thing that I thought was unavailable to me is now suddenly becoming more and more realistic. And that's when you start realizing that, hey, I've got more in me than I potentially realized. And I don't think there's anything more powerful. Like a sense of strength within yourself is something that I think everyone should be striving towards, because it feels, there's no words that I could use that would fill how that feels. But yeah, that's what I hope the book does for people.
Yeah, because you went through that as a young man, and for anybody else, it would have been, this is who he is, and this is what he's going to be, and it's not the best existence, and you had every excuse to just wither. You were supposed to wither away, And I think as we get older, we're supposed to, and then here's this book.
Yeah. Again, I mean, being born with cystic fibrosis, there are certain limitations that people place on you and parameters that they set up around you. And as I get older, the more I challenge those, because at that point, most people will just do what the doctors tell them. Parents as well, they'll just kind of, oh, we can't do this. Okay, can't do that. But, I always give credit to my parents when I can, because my progress and my path was in their hands up until I was able to take it off them and then run it myself. But without the base and the platform they gave me, I wouldn't be who I am today. And hopefully that comes across in the book. I am so grateful to be born to my parents. Luck is often thrown around, and we also know that luck is hard work and opportunity meeting each other, but to me, luck doesn't really exist. It's not a thing that actually, it's a nice thing that we can put on things, and humans love to do that. There's a simple thing that kind of answers this question. Oh, he's lucky. The only thing I'd consider myself lucky about is the fact that I was born to my mum and dad. I had no control over that. That's just the cards that I was dealt, and I'm extremely fortunate for having that. My parents gave me that sense of, hey, you have an older brother, go out and do what he does. You have your friends are doing these things. They didn't wrap me up in cotton wool. Like, again, I understand a lot of people do with their kids, whether they've got CF or anything else. It's very easy to kind of think, okay, I'm protecting this person. But at the same time, that can hold them back from doing a lot of things and developing that sense of, hey, what else can I do? That's a key trait that I think is so important. And again, my parents did the best job possible for me in that regard. So I always want to thank them when I get a chance.
So what I really liked, one of the other things I really liked about your approach was that you really kind of go back to the essential of mindset and principle. Because I think so many people want to sit there and say, well, what's the workout? Mm-hmm. And, so they want us to throw strategies and tactics at a problem without actually setting a baseline for, number one, what are the rules of the game? Mm-hmm. And so, put me in, coach, and you have no idea what you're doing.
Here's the ball.
Here's the ball. Okay.
The one I throw at something, or is this the one I want to...
Do I run with it? Do I kick it?
Yeah, I head it as far away from me as possible. You're right. That's a great way of looking at it, actually, yeah.
So you set up some principles to help people be, I guess, to succeed at all of this. Can you go through those principles?
Yeah, so there's 4 kind of main principles that I have in the book, and these actually came to me whilst I was out on a walk with my dog. And they are principles that I thought, what are the things I'm doing day in, day out that separate me from the people who aren't as healthy with cystic fibrosis? Now, again, I want to just put out a very quick point that cystic fibrosis is a genetic thing. So it's not like exercise can cure anything like that. It's not that. It's more of the case of, if I didn't have CF, what are the things I would need to do to stay healthy? And then I've got to address my CF, on top of that as well. So the principles that I kind of thought of were the main one, and I think I'm really glad that this is the first one that is in the book, is sleep. Sleep is so often the first thing that gets sacrificed when people are trying to achieve things. They're like, oh, I'll get up earlier. I'm like, okay, so you're sacrificing your sleep to try and do this thing that's going to make you more productive, or make you healthier, or make you, something along those lines, to try and take you closer to your goal. That's actually probably one of the things I would try and protect the most. Sleep it's something we all need. Your body's going to tell you need to sleep. And if you ignore that, I mean, you've seen I remember seeing studies about the damage that not sleeping did. There's one guy who stayed up for, I think, the longest amount of time, and it's still affecting him. He did this when he was in uni, I think. Now he's much later on in life, and he says he's still, I think like 40, 50 years later, he's still feeling the repercussions of that time of not sleeping. So sleep is, without a doubt, that's where you start. Again, I always look at it like a pie chart. What do you do the most in a day? If you're able to break it down into a pie chart, sleep is going to take up a significant part of that pie chart.
It should.
It should. Yeah, it should do. So let's address, the thing that's going to give you the greatest return on your investment, your time and your efforts. That's sleep. So that's a big, big part of the book. The next one is nutrition, like how you're actually feeding your body, because the whole, you are what you eat. There's a couple of things that, they sound cheesy when you say them, and they sound like, oh, it's just a little bit of a tagline, but that's true. Like, your body literally can only rebuild and repair tissue from what you give it. So making sure that you're fueling yourself correctly. And again, that's going to look different to every single person. Like, that's so deep. Nutrition is, it's a topic that I could have talked about ad nauseum in this book, but I tried to keep it as simple as possible, give you what you need to understand, give you the principles, so then you can go ahead and, make it yourself, make it suit for you. And then there's the other components of it as well. Obviously, you've got movement, and I broke movement up as in that's including exercise. The human body is designed to move. And when you understand more and more about the human body, the more you realize how that we have got this beautiful, I say machine, it's not a machine, but you get the point there, that we get control of this beautifully crafted piece of art. That's what I consider. Like, when you really understand what the body's doing, how the muscles work, how the tendons work, all those things that are going on that you don't even know, this thing we have control over it's a work of art, and it is designed to move. We're just making life, we're making things a lot easier for us to not do that. And then the last one, and arguably, again, they're all of equal importance, but the one I find very important is mental health. You can have all those three things. You could be sleeping well, you could be eating well, you could be moving well. But ultimately, if the thing that's in control of all of your decisions, the thing that ultimately makes you, is not being taken care of, the rest of them kind of all fall away. And it's a really, really important aspect of the book that I wanted to talk about quite a bit, is mental health.
Yeah. Now, at a high level, you gave some bits of advice early on in the book, and I want to go through a few of those because I think they're intuitive to someone who does this.
Yeah.
They might not be as intuitive to someone who hasn't yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the first one one of them you said was, be firm with your goals, but flexible with your approach.
Yes. That's a common one that I talk about with my clients quite a bit. Everyone wants to have, so let's take someone fat loss. That's always a good one. So people will say, right, I want to lose, let's say 30 pounds. I'm like, cool, that's your goal. Okay, but you understand that in order to do that, we need to, get you moving as much as we can. We need to be controlling your nutrition. We need to get you, lifting something. We need to get you lifting weights. We need to get, focus on those things. But we also understand that, whenever you're trying to be active, doing that during the winter, when it's cold and dark and rainy, that's so much harder than during the summer months. Then when it's bright outside, it's nice, you can get out, you can go for walks on it, and you can dial it in, even into the depth of like a woman going outside by herself in the bright daylight. They're going to feel a lot safer than going out in the middle of winter. So making sure that you're not applying the kind of same approach to every single day, and understanding that days are going to change. You need to be flexible in your approach. That yes, you might want to go out for a 5-mile walk, but you can't because it's raining, it's dark, it's not really conducive to making you want to go out. So what do you do instead? How are you flexible with how you get there? I think a lot of people break because they are so rigid in how they do things. And the moment that thing that they've set up doesn't work, snaps, they're like, well, that's it. And you're like, no. That's not how this works. We need to be flexible. Like, what else can you do? It's the if not then what mentality that's super important to getting results, in my opinion. And when you're flexible with how you get there, all that matters is that you're taking one foot and, one step in front of the other. That's all that matters. So some steps are going to be gigantic. Some are going to be tiny and almost, or some you're just not going to move at all. But it's so important that you're flexible with how you approach things. If you're not flexible, you're rigid. If you're rigid, you're going to snap. If you snap, you're going to have to try and pick yourself up and dust yourself off. And that's the hardest part, in my opinion. When you hit the ground and getting back up, that takes a lot of energy. So if we can avoid that by being flexible, we're on to a winner.
Yeah. Now, another one that's sort of corollary, if you think about it, but you said, if you're not assessing, you're guessing.
Yes. Yeah. I ran a podcast for 2 years called Fitness Made Simple. It ties in quite nicely with the name of this book as well. But that was a phrase that I was often, in nearly every single episode that my co-host would make me say it. If you're not assessing, you are just guessing. That's the ultimate truth. This is a formula. Health and fitness is a formula. Input, output, result. Your body doesn't care what you think you did, or if you think you were eating well, or you think that was 1,000 calories when it was actually 2,000. It doesn't care if you thought,
if the elliptical said, I burned 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. I have to burn it. There's no way that could be different. Yeah. So again, the truth is that if you want to take this seriously, you're going to need to track some measurables. You're going to need to have some numbers, because numbers don't lie. As I said, it's an input. Health is an input output thing. It's not this. I hope I can get rid of my cystic fibrosis, or I hope I can, lose these extra pounds. But your body doesn't care. Your body does not care. It cares input, output, simple equation. And if you're not tracking those things, you are just guessing. It's all guesswork. So tracking your steps. And again, there's people who thrive off this. People really love the numbers. I have clients that are like, I love the numbers. I love seeing these things. And there's some people who aren't, I would kind of fall into kind of in the middle, where I like to know what's going on, but at the same time, I don't like to get so granular about it where it starts taking the enjoyment out of it. So it's about finding what works for you. But what I would suggest, if you're starting this off, track as many things as you feel comfortable with. Some of the things I would suggest: track your steps, track your sleep as best as you can. There's so many apps and things out there that can monitor how much quality of sleep you're getting, the REM cycles, deep sleep, normal sleep, all those things. But, track as much as you can. If there's things that are becoming challenging, work out a pattern that allows you to make that more easy. We've got amazing things at our fingertips. We've got phones that can send alarms to remind you of things, because we've got 1,000 thoughts in our head. Trying to add another thing for you to do. Why not make it easy? Why not rely on other tools that we have? Set alarms on your phone. Write it on something that you see every day. Those visual prompts are going to really help you with that. But yeah, if you're not assessing, and that could be, it doesn't need to always be numbers. It could be, this is the size of plate that I have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How full is this plate? Okay, I'm looking to lose weight. Okay, we'll maybe try and reduce the amount of food that's on that plate. It doesn't always need to be really granular and like X amount of protein and X amount of calories. And also the thing is that what you do in a day doesn't really matter. It's what you do across the average. That's all that matters. You could eat super high calories one day, low the next. You could eat 3,000 one day, 1,000 the next. You're averaging 2,000 there. Our bodies are not this 24-hour clock in, clock out thing. It's a continuous system. Hopefully, it continues to run all the time. So yeah, don't beat yourself up if you have a bad day. Air quoting this on a podcast, I know, but if you have a bad day, just accept it, move on, and then course correct as best you can. But yeah, tracking things and assessing things, super important if you want to get results.
Yeah, and that's why I think those two in particular kind of coexist.
Yeah.
When you can do well, assess, track, know what you're doing. When things are getting kind of hairy, or you're too busy, or this or that, give yourself a little bit of grace, and then get back on track when it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's that sense that people say, I fell off the wagon. I hate that term. Yeah. I hate that term. No, you just slow down a little bit. Sometimes you can speed up. Sometimes you can slow down. And, I wish we could just say, I wish there was something I could say here that's going to allow you to just sprint through the rest of this and get all the results you want. But it's not real life. There's going to be days where you feel like, I always say the phrase I always use, like the juggernaut, you could break through a brick wall and feel like nothing can touch you. And then there's going to be days where the breeze feels like it's going to break every bone in your body. Those 2 days and every day in between there are part of this whole process. I wish we could promise you that you're going to feel like the juggernaut every single day, but that's not life, unfortunately.
Yeah, the way I like to say it is this. Okay, so imagine that there's 3 cars. Okay, so there's the Italian sports car that on a straight road with no bumps, no holes, can just fly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you got your pickup truck that is more utility. So when you got to carry some stuff and do some things, it's also okay if you need to go a little off road, if there's a speed bump or pothole or something. It's not going to go as fast as the sports car, but it's gonna move you forward. Okay, and then sometimes you got the family, you got vacations, holidays, everything else in between. You're going to take more pit stops. So now you're in this minivan. And the minivan's good because it can carry everything you have going on in your life, all the other obligations you have, everything. It's not going to go as fast as the other 2, but it's still moving forward.
Love that.
And so the trick is to pick the right car because you own all 3 of them. So based on what's going on in your life right now, pick the right vehicle and then go forward because you are still moving forward, albeit at different paces at different times in your life. And then the other side of this is to basically then know, if you know you're in the right car, moving as fast as reasonably possible, then you set your expectations and you have no reason to be disappointed with, if I were in the sports car in 1 hour, I'd be 150 miles down the road. For the last hour, I've only been driving 50 miles per hour, but I know I'm in the right car. So, I have all my family with me versus not.
Yeah, sports car.
There's times you can sprint. There's times you have to go a little slower. And just knowing that you're in the right car for what your life experience is at that moment, you can feel good about the results that you do have.
I love that analogy. I'm a big fan of analogies. That's how my brain works. And that's a fantastic. I'm going to steal that one. And
You're welcome.
I'm definitely going to credit you because that's fantastic. I love that one.
Good. Now you had another one here, and this was actually where you used an analogy of kayaking when you're going to get started, because getting started might be the hardest part of this whole thing. You look at your river and you say, okay, where's the best point to get into this river?
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's the narrow part.
Yeah. The reason why I say that is because I think everyone's waiting for the perfect time to start something. Spoiler alert. There's no perfect time. There may be better times, but there's no perfect time. And I think a lot of people get put off. I mean, I've been coaching now for 15 years, and a lot of people, I'd love to do this, but no, right, doesn't suit me right now. I've got so much going on, and all that. And I remember this came from a client call actually. She said, "Oh, look, I'm looking to work with you in about 6 months' time," and I was like, well, I can't guarantee I'm going to have spaces in 6 months' time. So, why 6 months? Oh, because I got this. It's like, okay. So there's nothing you can do between now and then. There's no way that you could dedicate a little bit of time and pick up some key traits and key, pieces that are going to help you to, get towards where you want to get to. And I flipped that back around. She was just like, well, I'm not going to be able to get to the gym. And I was like, the gym is important, but there's also things that matter aside from the gym that we could be working on that you definitely could be working on. So I just said to her, look, no, I can't take you in 6 months. I can take you right now though. And she sat there and she was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. And the reason why I said that to her is because I knew there was things that she could learn in that period of time when she was slammed. And I said to her, look, is this going to come back around again? Are you going to get busy again like this? She's like, well, yeah. And I was like, okay. So the next time this happens, you'll know what to scale back and what to focus on. Because let's face it, you can't get to the gym as often as you would like. That's fine. There's going to be times where you get busy. So what do you focus on? What are the prioritizations? And you're looking at the pie chart again. Where are we going to try and spend the most of our time and most of our efforts? Well, let's look at nutrition. Let's get that dialed in so that even in your busiest day, you've got a strategy that still allows you to feel like you're moving forward. Are you active? Are you walking when you can? Are you trying to find those moments that you can get up and you can move? Yeah, you might not be able to get to the gym, but can you go for a 5-minute, 10-minute walk? Yeah, cool. Well, let's do that. Let's focus on all the things you can control. So when this busy time comes up again, you can go, okay, well, can't get to the gym. That's fine. We'll set that to the side, but we can focus on these things. And that's why I said that in the book. You know, you want to get in where it's narrow so that you've got all the skills that are necessary, that when eventually those riverbeds, you know, the riverbanks narrow back up again, you're like, cool, set that aside. I'm not putting any excess pressure on myself to do these things that I physically cannot do. But I can do this and I can do that, and this I can do this, but it's going to have to change a little bit. And that's so important, that if you have those skills in your worst week, the best week is that much easier. And that's where that analogy was from.
Yeah, I had a friend, and she was about to launch her program, and she was like, "Should I do this before Ramadan? I mean, we're about to start Ramadan," because she coaches Muslim women. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, isn't that the perfect time to launch your get people in? Because if you can coach them through Ramadan, if they can have a successful Ramadan, which if you think you have an excuse, that would be an excuse. I said, if you can get them through Ramadan, you can get them through anything. And Ramadan, guess what? It's going to happen again."
Yes,
and again and again.
Yeah, it kind of comes around again, doesn't it?
It does. And so it's the whole point of, I want to wait until after my birthday. I want to wait until after, this, or,
Christmas,
it's busy, tax season for accountants. And you're like, okay, well, but that's going to roll around next year. Mm-hmm. So are you just going to quit?
Yeah.
And so you do great for 9 months out of the year, and then poof, give it all away. Yeah. And so getting in and just getting it done, even when you're busy, figuring out what works during that period of time too. If nothing else, just figure out maintenance.
Yeah.
And stay where you are. So don't lose the progress while you're on that, while you're on that ridge. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's something that's not talked about enough, that, we treat this like we are trying to improve upon ourselves, and it's that feeling of, oh, I'm not improving. Well, yeah, but maintenance is such an undervalued skill, to be able to sit where you are and hold fort. It's not talked about, really isn't. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's so true. Like, we can't always expect to be pushing forward and forward and forward and forward, because we're human. If we were robots, maybe, but I'm not. I don't know about you. I've checked a few times. I'm definitely not a robot.
But, I bleed. I cut myself shaving this morning. I bleed.
There you go. So yeah, like this idea that we need to keep pushing. It's why I think a lot of people's mental health does suffer quite a bit, because the moment they feel like they're not moving forward, they're like, oh, it's all over. And you're like, no. But maintaining, like, is that not where you want to get to? You don't want to always feel like you have to do more and more and more and more. You want to get to a point where it's not even that much of a conscious thought for you to do the things you're doing. And to me, that's maintenance. That's honestly where I'm at with my health and my fitness. I'm not trying to get bigger. I'm not trying to get leaner. I'm just trying to enjoy where I'm at and hold on to where I'm at, because as you get older and older and older, you realize that just maintaining is actually a win in itself. Maintaining the strength you've got. Again, we would all love to just get stronger and stronger and stronger, but we know that that's not possible. Otherwise, anyone who goes to the gym just kept that, would just be like a Belgian.
They couldn't afford the weights.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we need the 500-pound plates, because it's kind of silly, but I'm so glad you brought that up, because maintenance is a skill in itself that's just not talked about. It folds quite nicely into mental health as well, as this idea that we always want more. We always want more and more and more. Sometimes it's about sitting back and kind of reflecting, being like, you know what? There was a point in my life that I would have done anything to be where I am today. And if you've made progress, if you've lost 20 pounds, if you've lost 10 pounds, if you've lost 3 pounds, 4 pounds, there's a point in your life where that you would have done anything to lose those 3 or 4 pounds. So take time to appreciate that and understand that sometimes you got to know when you need to push yourself, and then sometimes when to pull back a little bit. And that's such an important part of this, to make this long term, because that's my only interest. I have no interest in what people can do in 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 12 months. I care about what they're doing in 12 years, 24 years. That's always my approach.
Yeah. It's interesting, because as I was reading your story and you were talking about the magazines, the muscle magazines and everything, I was like, okay, that's exactly my upbringing. Is, it was teenager wanting to get bigger, wanting to get stronger, and I start reading the magazines. And then I had a job, so now I'm subscribing to the magazines and actually paying for them, instead of trying to read the ones that are at the gym in between sets. And so certain terms I've always just known. And I think it's easy even as a trainer to just think, well, of course, everybody knows what frequency, progressive overload, tempo, that we know what those words are. But most people that are just getting started at this are they don't, and they're kind of intimidated, and they either go in and they do something, which God bless doing something, but I see them in the gym doing the same circuit every week, every day with the same weight. And I'm glad they're in there. I'm glad they're doing something, but I know they could get so much more value out of that time if they just understood. Now, you listed them as 5 principles of resistance training: frequency, intensity, progressive overload, rest, and tempo. Could you define each of those to give someone an understanding of what they are and why each of them is important to making sure that the time that you do spend in the gym, because we're all limited, time is the resource we can't buy back or have. And so making the most of that bit of time we're spending in the gym or at home with our own resistance training.
Yeah, so the 5 principles there, obviously the first one is frequency. That's just how often you can do the thing. And obviously we understand that the more often you do something, you're probably going to get better at it. Now, it's very important to kind of point out the fact that more is not always better. In fact, with this stuff, actually, just better is better. And I know it sounds redundant, but it is. It's, doing things better is going to be better for you than doing it poorly a lot of times. Take that time and take that. I always think people should take pride in how they move and how they execute form. Like, that was me. Like, I remember someone saying that to me when I first started training. They're like, your form is fantastic. And I took that. That was one of those things that, I talk about it in the book as well, these identity-based habits. Someone saying that to me, I was like, oh, that's really nice to hear, especially from someone like that. I'm going to now work on this tempo. I'm going to really take care of how I perform this exercise. But frequency is, arguably one of the most important things when it comes to this. It's kind of the base of the pyramid as such. How often can you do this thing? Okay, cool. How do you optimize that? How do you try and get in there as often as possible? Training a muscle group once per week. Obviously, training it twice is a little bit better. Training 3 times is great. Then you go 4 or 5, and that starts getting some. Can you recover from that? That's the kind of important part there. So yeah, if you're looking to improve something, the more often you can do it, and when I say that, to a good degree, not this like half-assed, half reps. Do it well. How often can I do that well in a day, in a week, in a month? Cool. That's where you start. That's the most important part. Frequency. The next part is then intensity, and I think that's. Showing up is the first part. That's the hardest part. Just getting to the gym. I always say this so many times. The hardest part about going to the gym is getting to the gym. It's the hardest thing. And that is relevant to everything. My gym is literally in my garage, which is less than 15 seconds away. And even then, I still skip it sometimes. So again, getting to the gym, well done. Pat yourself on the back for that. Like the people we were saying as well. The people who are there, you're like, good. How do we now make the most of your time? That's where intensity comes in. Now, intensity is one of those things, it's between you and you. Only you know truly whether you are giving it your all. I've worked with, and I'm sure you're the same, I've worked with people who think they're Oscar winners. Like, yes, I'm really struggling. You're like, no, you're not. I can see you're not struggling. Like, you're not a good actor. You're not as good as you think you are. Your neck veins aren't bulging. Your face isn't changing color. You still look pretty good. If you're working hard, you're not going to be on the cover of a magazine with those faces you pull. So intensity is key. You can't come into this expecting to get results if you're not putting in the work. As I said, it's an equation: input, output. If you put in as whatever you've got in that day, and that's going to vary so much. That's another thing that's really important to talk about. The intensity you have on any given day is going to change massively because, again, as I said, we're human. There's so many things that can impact your performance. The mood you're in, the conversations you've had, the sleep you had, how much water you've drank, what food you ate before. There's so many, for instance, like my dog being sick. That put me, I went to the gym and my dog wasn't feeling well and my mood was terrible, so my performance dropped. But as long as you can go, right, I'm going to give this what I've got. Some days it's going to be 5%, some days it's going to be 95%. As long as you can say, look, I give that my all, you're good. That's where the intensity comes from. I think when people hear intensity, they think like screaming and bodybuilding and like grunting. And no, some days you'll feel like that, but don't be that guy. Don't be that person in the gym screaming and grunting.
Well, if you're at home, Jim, you can scream all you want, Ben.
Exactly. There's a time and place. Progressive overloading, again, you talked about that earlier. I always use the story of Milo of Croton, the godfather of progressive overload. And the story is Milo was an ancient Greek athlete. He was a wrestler, I believe, back in 5 BC. And he was known as the godfather of progressive overload because for training for the Olympics, he would take a newborn calf, throw it over his shoulder, go for a walk. And he'd do that every single day. And as he developed, obviously the calf was growing every single day. And if you Google this, you'll be able to find the image of Milo. It's usually like 3 images, but most of the images you'll see of him carrying a full-grown ox or bison. It depends on the story of it, but full-grown bovine creature over his shoulder. And you're like, whoa, that's amazing. But he did it every single day, this small amounts, imperceivable amounts each day until he got to that point. And we all, again, like everyone, we look at the end result. We look at the end result and go, how the heck did he do that? He did it by doing it one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. People often overlook that. Progressive overload, it could be 1 extra kilo, 1 extra pound, half a pound, an extra rep, better control of that rep, resting a little bit longer, resting a little bit shorter. There's so many ways you can apply progressive overload and look at it. Just as long as you are giving it your best, you're trying to find that 1% improvement. That's progressive overload kind of taken care of.
Now, if he had taken a week off, he would have had to find another cow because that cow's getting bigger and he's not getting any stronger. So
exactly,
he would lose that cow. He'd have to find another cow and start there. So
restart. And again, that's where the frequency comes in. Is like, what can you do? It's not what you would like to do. It's what can you do? Like that's all I care about. Clients come to me and say, I want to train 6 days a week, 5 days a week. I'm like, cool. That's admirable. That's great. But on your worst week, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. That sweet spot where we're like, okay, even if SHIT hits the fan, you're good. Like you can still keep going. You can still show up because that's all that matters. And then the fourth out of these is rest. Again, really undervalued, really not talked about enough. I always use the example of, right, you clone myself. Both those clones do 100-meter sprint, all out, maximal effort. You give the first version of me 30 seconds rest, they just walk back and then they have to go again. But you give the second version of me 3 minutes rest. We can all agree that the person who's got 3 minutes rest is going to perform a hell of a lot better than the person who's only had 30 seconds rest. It's so important that we put ourselves in a position where we can maximally implement our strength. We want to put ourselves in the best position possible that we can output the greatest performance possible. Resting is super important, taking that time to rest in between sets. And then lastly, tempo. And the reason why it is last is because you need to get all these other things correct before you even think about the next thing. You need to get frequency before you start thinking about intensity. You need to get intensity before you get progressive overload, and so on and so forth. And the last one is tempo. This is one that's a little bit more geared towards, okay, try and put on as much muscle tissue as possible, trying to make this as effective as possible. When you learn how the muscles work and where the sweet spot is for muscle growth, it's that eccentric, it's that loading portion of the exercise. So it's actually the lowering portion. If you're taking like a bench press, for example, it's lowering the bar down to your chest. That's where the muscles are struggling the most. That's where we want to be. On a pull-up, it's not actually the pull-up. It's actually the releasing of the pull-up as we're coming down to stretch those lats. It's really important that you understand that and make the most of it. A lot of people overcomplicate it, but I always think Beauty and the Beast when it comes to tempo. You should be beautiful on your return, or the eccentric, let's say, let's use bench press, for example. You want to be beautiful as the bar's coming down, nice and control, and then you want to be a beast as you're pushing that away from you. So Beauty and the Beast is a nice little way of remembering that. Strength
and power.
Exactly.
So the way I like, when you put this in there, I was looking at them, I'm like, this is the way I was thinking. It's almost like an EQ, with the way they do music, and you see all the levers.
Yep.
And so what you have to find for yourself, and it's actually a daily exercise because it's got to change a little bit. But if you're saying, okay, my frequency is going to be 4 times a week, and I can do that no matter what, then intensity is going in and saying, okay, last time I was here with this exercise, I was doing 100 pounds. I'm going to start with 100 pounds, and I'm going to listen to my body. And if my body tells me that I could do a lot more, then I'm going to up that weight. If my body tells me, no, there's something you're not 100%, I may bring that down to just make sure I'm at the top intensity I need to be at for that workout. Progressive overload is me looking at my workouts over time and just saying, I need to make sure that I'm adding a little bit to each exercise to get stronger, and or adjusting my workout so that I'm working the body in a different way that now requires my body to be overload from a different perspective, maybe with lower weights. So someone that's doing like body weight work, if you just did the same workout every time, there's no real way. We'll talk about another way to do that, but in a general sense, if you do the same exercises over and over, well, there's no progression because this is just your body weight, unless you're going to gain weight to make yourself stronger, which is not what I would encourage you to do. But you are then, progressive overload by changing up the exercises. Rest has two components. It's between workouts and in the middle of the workout. You talked about the 30 seconds versus 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. When I'm doing very heavy exercises, I'm going to want 3 minutes. So my body can rebuild the energy batteries in the muscle to be able to fire off at that level. And what I would say is, if you can do an exercise for a certain number of reps, and then immediately 30 seconds or less than 30 seconds, less than a minute more, go back in and do the same thing, you didn't get the intensity right.
Correct.
Because if you got the intensity right, you would want to rest a full minute, 90 seconds at least, and maybe up to 3 minutes, depending on the intensity. So you can kind of feel if your intensity is there, if you could go right back in and do that again, the intensity definitely wasn't there. And then tempo, and I think this is particularly for people doing body weight, where tempo can actually be one of the best tools for you ever. So let's say you say, okay, I can do 12 body weight squats with no trouble whatsoever. You don't necessarily just want to do more. So try this. When you're going down in the squat, have a metronome or a timer, it's counting down seconds, make it take 3 seconds and then pop up. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, those 10 to 12 reps are going to be a lot more intense.
And again, talking about the kind of cheesy things we say, don't count the reps, make the reps count. That's another one that's painfully accurate. So many people just go, okay, 10 reps, did it. Like, there's no, you did it, but like, did you do those reps for the reason we're doing reps? As you said earlier, if your body doesn't have a reason to change, it's not gonna. It's not gonna change. No challenge, no change. It's a phrase I use so frequently to my clients as well. What we're trying to do is we're trying to elicit a response where your body goes, hey, that was difficult. How do we make that not as difficult? Oh, well, we need to get stronger. We need to get more capable of that movement. We need to get more efficient. That's all our bodies are trying to do. Our bodies are so well designed to conserve energy. One of the ways it can conserve energy is making the muscle that you're using better at the task that you're asking for it to do. That's how muscle grows. And that's when you take that big step back and look at it. That's all we're trying to do here. Yeah.
And that's what, if you incorporate each of these 5 consistently and appropriately, you're challenging the muscle, and the muscle, it has to adapt. That's how it was designed. And that adaptation is you getting stronger and getting better, the quality of the muscle getting better, your body fat percentage going down, getting better. So, it's just, it just all kind of blends in. So I think a lot of people really think that resistance training is difficult to figure out. Know the form, learn the form, get a trainer if you need to get started that way. Machines are really good for just popping in and at least figuring out a movement pattern.
That's it.
Because it won't let you not.
Try and push it. Yeah, when you try and pull down a shoulder press machine, it's not going anywhere. It can only go up.
Straight up. And if you've got the seat set, and you're back against the pad, and you're in comfortable seated position where your body's now the frame, it pushes you into the right direction. So it's not a bad way to learn. And then using these other 5, just sit down and work your way through. And then as you go, you learn, you add additional exercises, you change up your exercises to get that progression. Because you'll find there's a point on that press that you can't push anymore. Either the machine runs out of weights or you're not pushing anymore. So it's time to change things up. So good. Ben, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
That's a really good question. 3 for me, one of them has to be address your habits. Like have keystone, if you want to use that word, keystone habits that are just the things you do every single day. That's ultimately, we are what we do most. That's simple. So little habits that, again, are often kind of brushed aside because they're not big enough. Things like drinking water in the morning. So make it a thing that you, first thing upon waking, you just have a glass of water. That's the first thing you do. It does not need to be any more complex than that. You don't need to squeeze lemon into it. You don't need to have it. Just keep it simple. Have a glass of water first thing in the morning. Hydrate yourself. We are water-based being at the end of the day. It's pretty important that you are hydrating yourself first thing in the morning. So keep this simple. Be active as best as you can. So again, as I said earlier, find ways, it doesn't need to be 30, 40, 50, 60-minute walks. 5 is enough. I actually had a client, she lost her way and she rang me and she was in a bit of a tizzy and she was like, I'm not worth your time and blah, blah, blah. And I went, all right, calm down. It's fine. Can you walk 3 minutes a day? She was like, yeah. I was like, let's start there. After that 3 minutes, I want you to drink a glass of water. She's like, oh, okay. I could do a lot more than that. And I'm like, I know you can. But let's focus on what you can definitely do every single day. And she did that. She also had cystic fibrosis as well. But that process, that kind of like breaking of the sense of stress and really bringing things back down to the basics, it set her on a path that allowed her to lose 30 plus pounds. She underestimated the small things, and that's where we worked from. And another thing I would say there is, we have a brain that is constantly critiquing ourselves. That's how our brains are kind of wired. It's critique. And it's very easy to fall into that. You go into the gym and you ask 100 people in the gym, what are you happy about? They're going to struggle. You ask them what they're not happy about, they've got a list, as long as their arm. So I think a really important part of your day should be, and this is kind of part of the keystone habits, is check in on yourself and remind yourself of what you've got rather than what you don't. And I think that's really important for me. It's so important. And I'm not this guru who's like, I'm so enlightened and I'm so positive all the time. No, it's not. But when you remind yourself and you're in that place of gratitude, it's very hard for the other things to exist in there. In fact, I think there was a statistic that said that if your mind is in a grateful state of being and in that process, it's very difficult to feel negative feelings. So again, I'm not asking you to walk around and kumbaya everything, but just take some time to appreciate what you've got, appreciate the things you have in your life rather than things you don't, and be appreciative of the fact that you're the things you don't have and the things that you think are going to give you that sense of peace and happiness and contentment. You're working on those things. So I think that's a really important one as well. Another part would be, I always use the analogy when it comes to training and recovery, is that you're in a boat and you've got 2 paddles. One of them is training and the output, and then one of them is that recovery. A lot of people put so much effort in training, and we talked about this earlier, and they neglect the rest and that ability to recover. And that is super important. Having both those go on at the same time, that's going to keep you moving forward. One, you're going to spin around circles. And then 2, have a supportive structure around you. Have people that care for you, check in on them, communicate, whether that's online, offline, whether that's with a coach, with a friend, an accountability partner. Have something in your system that, humans are designed for community. It's one of the most important and most needed things. Make sure you've got a good community around you. So those would be my 3 things. Habit, make sure you're prioritizing training, but also the recovery, and then making sure you've got a good community around you as well.
Thank you, Ben. Ben, if someone wanted to learn more about you, learn more about the book, Fitness Without Limits, where would you like for me to send them?
You can send them to my Instagram page. Again, my Instagram page is designed to just make this as simple as possible and to make sure that, the information I'm giving you is stuff you can actually apply. I really wanted this book to be a book that you can pick up and start actually implementing stuff immediately rather than be like, that's a good idea. No, take action on these things and break it down to the point where you can't not be successful. So yeah, probably my Instagram.
Yeah. And you've shared enough here to just get people started while they're waiting for the book to arrive too. So go check out his Instagram, go check out the book, Fitness Without Limits. Ben, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you for having me, Alan. I appreciate it.
Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we're going to discuss an epidemic that is hitting a lot of us as we age. People are beginning to discuss the problem, but very few are offering practical solutions. The problem? Loneliness. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.